Let's put together a surprise holiday TBR. Hi, my name is Emily Crow from The Cozy Crow, and welcome to my YouTube channel. This is a little bit different of a spot. We're actually in my bathroom, but that's because I'm in an old house, and so things are a little weird. I have my closet right here in the bathroom. Yes, like I said, it's weird, but it is my closet. It has carpet on the floor. It's made for me, not for bathroom things, but in my closet, I have my physical TBR. You can see some books up there, and these are all the books that I have not yet read that I would like to read, and I really think I want them on my bookshelf when I'm done reading them, and so that's why I have purchased them. And I was looking through my physical TBR, and I honestly don't have a lot of holiday books, and recently when I was at the bookstore, there were many books to choose from. I was getting inspired to pick up some holiday romances or holiday fiction novels, but I thought this would be a really fun Vlogmas video to film where I do a random way to choose my holiday TBR, and then I read those books and share it with you in Vlogmas. So I have this deck of cards, the Reader Roulette cards from Pippi Post, and I thought this was such a fun idea that you can just pick a card or 5 and use those cards to inspire which books you pick up. So you have a little bit of direction, but it's still pretty open-ended. And I thought it would be really fun if I pick 4 cards from here and then take those to the bookstore and try to find books that I haven't read before that fit those prompts that are holiday books. And I'm taking you along with me. Cards are like jam-packed in here, so I'm like breaking the box, which is so sad. Okay. There are so many cards in here to choose from. We've got all sorts of cards of things like read a celebrity memoir. That might be hard for a Christmas book. All sorts. I have a huge stack here. Now, if there is something like a celebrity memoir that's not appropriate, then I will just skip that card. I'm going to take the first 4 cards that I grab, and we're going to try to find books that fit into those categories. And I do have a couple holiday books. I'm going to make sure I don't purchase any of those again, and if any of those fit this category, I probably won't buy another book. You know, I'll just use what I have. But I thought it would be fun to do a little book shopping today and see if we can find some fun holiday books to read this season. These cards are too stiff to like actually shuffle, so just trying to mix them up, and let's see what our first prompt is. The deck of cards, and I don't know if the different colors on this face of the card pertain to any like pattern or anything, so I'm just going to grab a card. Let's see what it is. Continue a series you've already started. I don't know if I can do this one. We'll keep it as a potential. Because are there any series, like romance series or fiction series that are Christmas related? I don't know. I curled my hair today. For some reason, this one totally fell out. Next one. Okay. Read the book that has been on your TBR the longest. So maybe I'll look at what my TBR is on Storygraph and see if there are any books on there, or I'll just see which of these books I've had on my radar. That'll be a good one. Let's find a different one. Pick a book that everyone has read. That could be fun, though I need to make sure they're different than the TBR book. Okay. I'm picking all like blue. Choose a book with flowers on the cover. Okay. Since I don't know about the series one, I'm going to put that one back and we'll pick another one because I think the other 3 I could definitely do. So we'll pick a different one. Oh my gosh, all blues. Choose a book about friendship that has like a strong friendship component. I think we can do that. I guess most of these cards are different shades of blue, but look at these prompts. So cute. So let's go to the bookstore and see if we can find anything. having a lot harder time than I thought finding books, but I have 2 to share with you. The things that are giving me a hard time. The book that's been on my TBR the longest, they literally don't have it in stock. They have like 4 other books by the same author, but it's not here. But the second longest book to be on my TBR on Storygraph, I actually have the copy of. So I think that's what I'll probably do. But then choose a book with flowers on the cover. Like, I know it's Christmas, but poinsettias, I can't find them anywhere. So I might have to pivot. Maybe I should go back to the card that said continue in a series, because I actually have an idea for that falls in the holiday category. So we might rewrite and do that one. All right, I've had some success, and I did not buy as many books as I planned to, which is phenomenal. Honestly, I was planning on buying all 4 books that I need to fill this TBR, but I found 2 books, and there are 2 books on my shelves back home that I can use. That means I can read some books on my physical TBR and have a net negative for this video, which is a really great thing. I should definitely read the books on my shelves as well, but it's nice that I have books to go with this TBR. So I'm excited to read them because of these prompts, which is really fun. Just a nice little direction for what I'm going to read next. So let's hop right into it and see what our first book is. Alright, so we are starting this reading, and I have my books all stored up there. That's where I put the books that I've been working on, whether or not I'm reading them physically or as an audiobook or what. But I've got my books, and the one I'm starting with is A Season for Second Chances. I was able to find this from Libby as an ebook, and so I'm reading this on my Kindle, which is really nice. I like to read on my Kindle right before bed. Sometimes I'll take it with me on the go, but usually it's like a before bed type of reading. And I just know that reading a physical book is going to be a lot slower for me because I read before bed, I listen to audiobooks while I'm doing chores or while I'm driving, and even like I'll bring my Kindle with me to work if I'm working a night shift and might have some time while my patients are sleeping. And so physical books I don't get through very fast. So that's my ebook that I'm going to be reading. I have 2 audiobooks from this stack. I was able to find the audiobook for In a Holidaze by Christina Lauren, and this is an older book. When was this published? In 2020. 4 years old now. So I feel like everyone's read this. This is my everyone's read this book already from. Where are my prompts? Where did I put them? So A Season for Second Chances is the book that's been on my TBR the longest, since I have owned this book personally for over a year now. And it's been on my TBR almost the longest, but I couldn't find the Jenny Bayliss book that's been on my list for the longest. So we're going with this one. In Holidaze is my, let's see, book that everyone has read, I feel like. It's been a pretty popular book, and Christina Lauren is a pretty popular author duo. So that's that book. My other audiobook is The Holiday Cottage, which is a book about friendship. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a subplot of romance too, but this cover is just gorgeous with the foil. I don't know, there's something about this that is scratching the itch. I love it. And I have that audiobook on Hoopla actually. I have it connected with my same library card, but they have a little bit different of a selection, and there's often books I can get that I can't find on Libby, like The Holiday Cottage, or they're not available on Libby. There's like a wait hold, but they have on Hoopla. I think how it works is there's a certain number of loans that can be taken every month, and so as long as I try to get that loan before that threshold has been reached, then I have the book. And so occasionally I've had where like a popular book already has its loans full for the month, so I have to wait till the next month to get it, but that means I don't have to wait in line, which is really nice. And then the last book I have, I think I'll read physically, but this is Spectacular from the Caraval series that just came out by Stephanie Garber, and this is continue series you've already started, and technically I finished the Caraval series, but this is a little spin-off novella. The reason why I want to read this physically is because there's all sorts of like art. I don't know how well you can see. There's art and like multimedia stuff, so I thought this would be really fun, and it's a 3-hour audiobook. I do have the audiobook as well. I lucked out and have a skip the line loan for that. So I might tandem audiobook and physical book read this. But I was thinking that when I need a break, I might just sit down and read this in an afternoon, and it won't be too long. If it's a 3-hour audiobook, I can listen to it on 2 times speed, 1.5 hours, and then I can be even a little faster if I'm reading it physically myself, if I am in the zone. So I might even try to knock this out today. The book that I have already started is A Season for Second Chances, because that's my ebook, and between the 2 audiobooks and the really quick audiobook / physical book, I figured the ebook would take me the longest to get through, and so I wanted to start it. And let's see, where am I in my Kindle? I like to mark it with my bookmark. I'm about to start chapter 10, so I'm about 50 pages in. Got this cute bookmark from, is it Pippi post? I'm 12% of the way through this book, so I've been introduced to the characters. I haven't quite met the love interest, though I've had some indirect interactions with him. We're getting a little bit of a sense for who he is, though I'm sure we will learn a lot more when he comes into play. But of course, our main character has some assumptions about him. So this story by Jenny Bayliss is about Annie, who is a chef who has worked really hard at, doing the chef thing, having her own business, raising her twin boys, and now she's in her 40s, her twins are out of the house, and her husband has cheated yet again on her, and she is finally ready to cut ties, get a divorce, do something different with her life. So she ends up finding a guardianship posting in a newspaper where she's just gonna like house sit basically and take care of this little cottage on the beach. And I think she's in like Scotland, UK kind of area. I can't tell exactly how far away she went to go to this bay, but she has just accepted the guardianship and she is getting ready to move in for the winter season. The owner's nephew, what's his name? Do we find out his name? John is his name. So Annie and John. John seems kind of intense. He's got to stick up his butt. So we'll see how they get along as we get to know more about his character. I am intrigued. I am enjoying this. It's a little bit Hallmarky. This book isn't taking itself too seriously, so it's got really nice, cozy holiday read vibes, but it's not written poorly or anything. I just think it's got a little bit of quirkiness, and it also knows it, and it's kind of leaning into the quirkiness a little bit, but it's not a ridiculous type of a story thus far. But Annie was like leaving the cottage, and she's like, wow, this is amazing. This is exactly what I need. A couple months of a fresh start to figure out where I want to go for my life. This is where I need to be. And then a seagull poops on her head. I am having a lot of fun with this, and all the chapters are really short actually, which is nice for getting a couple chapters in here and there. I just got a couple chapters in while I was exercising on my indoor bike. I can do a few chapters at nighttime. It's hard when the chapters are like 20 or 30 minutes long to like try to get through a whole chapter before bed when I'm falling asleep, but I can get a couple 5-minute chapters done easily while I'm falling asleep. It's just a little easier for me for some reason. So we'll keep working on this. We'll see next time I fill you in. I may have started reading this physical book. Which audiobook should I start with? Decisions. Maybe I'll ask Instagram. I'm back, got some editing done. Time to read and listen while I snack. Look at this. It's beautiful.
Originally printed in Melinda, capital city of the Meridian Empire, during the second year of the Scarlet Dynasty by Legendary Publications. If you are a curmudgeon or have any sensitivities to merriment, fantasy, romance, dreams, and holiday magic, you may wish to put this book down immediately.
Oh my gosh, look at this cute map! I realized that I hadn't updated you on what this book is even about. So they have Great Holiday, Eve. So kind of like a Christmas or Yule type of festivity. And Donatella is looking for a present for Legend, but it can't be just any special present. Currently, she has been tricked, it seems like, into transporting to a new area away from the Christmas market, and now she is going to put on a performance for Legend, maybe? She doesn't quite know what's going on, so I'm sure we will find out soon. Alright, so for our first completed book for this challenge, the continuous series you've already started, I finished Spectacular by Stephanie Garber. And this is like book 3.5 of the Caraval series, so it takes place after the events of the third book in the Caraval series. Caraval, but it doesn't really connect to the Once Upon a Broken Heart series. This was really cute. It was really a fast and fun read. I loved having the illustrations, and I felt like this book really captured the magic that I really like seeing in all the books. Some books have more than others, but this has a lot of that magical element that I really like. Not quite as sinister as some of the other books, but there are definitely some sinister elements in it. And this exclusive content that's in the Barnes & Noble edition is like an additional epilogue that is at the very end, where basically you just get an extra little chapter of Scarlett and Julian, which is kind of cute. I liked it. It was so fun and very festive for the holiday season. I liked how short and succinct it was. I do wish there was a little bit more at the end of this story. I wish there was a little bit more conclusion, but I think it set out what it was trying to do, and it was cute. I don't like this series quite as much as I like the Once Upon a Broken Heart series, but I would love to read everything by Stephanie Garber in this world, and so I was really happy that I had a chance to read this. And listening to the audiobook was really fun. I definitely recommend it if you can get it. It's a nice quick audiobook with some fun sound effects and things. So I feel good that I got one book off my TBR, and I read my first book from this holiday TBR specifically. And then I asked on Instagram which book I should read first, in Holidaze or the Holiday Cottage, and actually the results were like 2/3, 1/3 in a Holidaze. So I think I'm gonna start this book first. I do have both audiobooks from my library, one on Hoopla, one on Libby. They both have basically the same due date time, so it doesn't really make a difference, but I guess we're gonna be starting this book next. Hello. Since I last talked to you, there's been an unexpected twist in my Instagram poll, which I think I'm actually excited about. So previously, In a Holidaze by Christina was winning, but I checked back a few hours later, and surprise, the table have turned, and The Holiday Cottage won by Sarah Morgan. And this is the prompt, oh, I wish I had my card, a story about friendship or something along those lines. And so I think this will be good to break up the couple romances that I have for this holiday reading vlog. And I am about 2 chapters into my listen, and it's funny hearing the different characters that I have here, and I still have a lot more of getting to know them, but right now we have 2 distinct characters. Imogen, who is kind of an antisocial workaholic, really enthusiastic about her job. I get the impression she might be neurodivergent to some extent, but I don't know for sure. And then Dorothy, who is one of Imogen's clients, and it sounds like she's working hard to build up her small business. Things are going well, but there's also something underlying that is weighing down on her. Maybe there's something difficult about the Christmas season that is really bothering her. Starting to get to know the characters, but I'm excited to see how friendships blossom, especially with Imogen, because she is a character that does not have any friends. She doesn't really have any connections. So I'm excited to see where this story goes. While I'm listening to that, I'm actually working on my Christmas sweater. I've got my Everett pullover, and it's inside out. So you can't really see it very well. And also the lighting is horrible, but we'll get to that in a second. I just did my first 3 needle bind off, and it was way easier than I thought it would be. It sounds complicated, and it's not. You're basically just knitting both sides together, and then you're binding off a stitch that you've just worked through. Easy peasy, and I feel accomplished having learned a new skill. It's like 1 or 1:30 in the morning. I am switching to work night shift. I'll be working, we're technically in Friday early morning now, so I'm working tonight. So in order to kind of scoot my sleep schedule, I'm staying up late tonight. I'll be up in the morning and then take a really good nap in the afternoon.
to get ready to work. I don't have the mental capacity to like get a lot of actual work done, so I'm just listening to my audiobook, doing some knitting, and just staying up for a while, having a grand old time. And we'll check in when I have a little bit more details about how this book is going. But it sounds like it's also taking place in the UK. That's where the Cotswolds is, right? I think so. The book by Jenny Bayliss is also set in the UK area, some bay somewhere up north, I think. I shouldn't be trying to remember things in the middle of the night. It's just interesting. I didn't pick it for the setting, but we might get some fun UK little old school village type of a vibe in this book too. I just got my braces tightened, and we're about 30% of the way into The Holiday Cottage by Sarah Morgan, and we are starting to get to know the characters a little bit more, though there are definitely still some questions on like the exact circumstances and traumas that have made these characters the way that they are. It's kind of nice that it's a little bit of a slow burn, but I do feel like I'm getting closer to answers on who these characters are. We also have a third character perspective that we are hearing from, Sarah, who is Dorothy's daughter actually, and I understand a little bit more on like these characters' relationships with one another. So Imogen is like an event planner, an event organizer. She takes on a lot. She doesn't really have any kind of home life or hobbies or anything, and she has a pretty strained relationship with her mother. So we're seeing that in action right at this point in the book. And while you might think that Imogen just has a really hard time coping with the struggles of life and she's ignoring a lot of things that are normal stressors for the average human, I do feel like she has some emotional intelligence that I didn't see right away, which is really interesting to see these layers to her character, as she is saying that she feels a responsibility to be there for her mother, but she also knows that she's the only person who can protect her own mental health. So her trying to balance that is really interesting to see. As far as Dorothy goes, she feels really guilty for something that happened in the past that it seems like probably wasn't her fault, but she feels at fault for, and so she cannot really find peace. We have not heard exactly what has happened, but I'm sure that will come up later. And then as far as Sarah, Dorothy's daughter, goes, she seems to have a really loving home life, but the impact of having her mother's anxiety and guilt for whatever happened in the past, her mother's experiences are impacting Sarah. And so it's just really interesting to hear. Sarah feels like she's got a lot of really good things going on in her life, but she still feels this anxiety that like something bad is coming, that it can't last forever, and that she may be doing all she can, but that can't prevent horrible situations from arising. And she wants to keep her two daughters safe. I identify with Sarah so much and feeling like I have been so blessed, but when is the shoe gonna drop, and when are the horrible things that I like have stress about or that I have nightmares about, when is something actually gonna happen? Because I feel like my life is overdue for some horrible circumstances. I don't know, does anyone else feel that way? I know that's my anxiety and OCD that's like making me feel that way, but it's just really nice to read a character that has thoughts and feelings like that, but is also pretty even keel, like they are doing well. And so I feel like I have issues sometimes. I'm pretty stable. So it's nice to see someone who is like a very relatable and realistic character. So I'm really liking getting to see Sarah's perspective too, and how she's trying to cope with her mother's struggles and how that's impacting her own mental health. So I'm enjoying getting to know these characters more, but it's a little bit of a slow burn. I really want these characters to start interacting more with one another, especially because this is going to be like a friendship type of a story. I'm really excited to see the impact that friendship will have on these characters and to see them grow throughout this book. Okay, we are about halfway through The Holiday Cottage by Sarah Morgan, and we just got this huge truth bomb dropped. So the first half of this book, we've spent lots of time doing kind of a slow build, getting to know the personalities of all these characters, and knowing that there's a little bit of mystery behind each of these characters. And finally, we get this truth acknowledged of how these characters are intertwined, and it totally caught me off guard. I gasped. In retrospect, I'm like, okay, that makes sense actually, but in the moment I was like, no idea. Like, I did not know that that's where the story was going. So I'm excited to see where the rest of the story goes and how this truth impacts all three of these characters and the further interactions in this book. Like, it's really got me hooked because that was more drama than I was anticipating. We're gonna keep going and see what happens next. Hello. I've got a few updates to share with you on this holiday reading vlog. I actually was able to finish The Holiday Cottage by Sarah Morgan, and I have some thoughts. I feel like this book was a different book, first half versus second half. After that big reveal that we got, we had a little bit of turmoil, right, as the characters were dealing with that big reveal happening and the repercussions potentially. But pretty soon thereafter, there was a love interest, and it got very like cozy, Christmassy, spend time with family and friends. It turned very Hallmarky, I would say. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it very much felt like the tone of the first half of the book and the second half of the book weren't really connected. I felt like both the love interest as well as the progression of other relationships in Imogen's life were expedited. Like, it didn't quite fit how much she was going through emotionally and how big of steps she was taking in her relationships. It just was a little bit dissonant for me personally. I would have loved a little bit more time for her to come to grips with the new knowledge she gained and adjust her life accordingly. But it all happened in the course of like 2 to 3 weeks. Everything changed, basically. It felt a little bit unrealistic in that sense. Though I will say I really did love the second half and the cozy vibes. Definitely had the holiday feels of like going to get a Christmas tree and spending time with people you care about and things like that. And I really love Miles, the love interest. It was so very sweet. I think I mentioned before that Imogen is a really complex character, and the other characters, Sarah and Dorothy, that we see, they have some complexity to them, which I really like. I did feel like the second half of the book didn't give me as much character introspection and growth as I was hoping because of how complex these characters were introduced in the first half of the book. I also felt like a lot of the, I guess, turmoil or concerns or consequences addressed in the first half of the book, and then throughout the truth bomb that was dropped in the middle, were wrapped up way too easily. For me, personally, I would have loved a little bit more strife and working through those things and a little bit more realistic of a growth arc for these characters. But in general, I really did like this book. And even though the first and second halves felt very different from one another, I liked them both separately. And I feel like if the book had taken one tone versus the other, I would have liked both versions, but having both versions combined in one book, first half versus second half, didn't work quite as well for me. I just felt like there was a big shift that happened in the book. It didn't bring the reader along with the shift. I felt like I was left in the dust and I didn't get the conclusions that I was hoping for that were introduced in the first half. I will definitely read more by Sarah Morgan and see how I like her other books. In reading the reviews, it seemed like people didn't like this book as much as her other books, and so I definitely want to try at least one other of her books and see how I like it. So that's 2 books done. I have one more audiobook to listen to in Holidaze by Christina Lauren, and my hold is running out pretty soon. I only have like maybe 6 days left, so I'm going to get started on that pretty soon. But let's update you also on A Season for Second Chances by Jenny Bayliss. I'm about 30% of the way into this book, making some good progress. My progress kind of stalled out after the first night, and I've been moving really slowly through this, and I think partly it's because I've been so exhausted switching over from night shifts, and it just is a little bit slower of a pace than I would hope for. There's been like a false love interest that was kind of introduced. There's lots of characters actually from this hometown, and none of them are super distinct. And so it feels like just extra names. And so it's a little hard to keep track of like, wait, who was so-and-so? Who was so-and-so? How does she know them? And I like how she's getting integrated in the community, but I'm having a little bit hard time following all the characters. Also, the actual love interest that I pointed out early on in the story that I was thinking, I think it'll be this guy. He has only showed up, not even in person, but in 2 letters, and that's it. Like 2 little notes saying, hey, I stopped by kind of thing. And we're 30% of the way in the book, so it's not even like a slow burn because nothing's happening. I am liking this book, but it is very much geared for someone older than me. I just turned 30, so I am like a full-fledged adult, but this person is like in their mid-40s to late 40s, and they have been married for, I don't know, 25 years or so, and they have 2 twin boys that are mid-20s. Like, she's lived a lot more life than I have, and her sense of humor, her way of talking, the things that she's hoping to get out of this trip don't resonate with me as much. I wonder if someone who is older would connect more with this character than me. I'm not sure. I'm not having a bad time at all, but I am feeling a little bit more alienated from this character than I anticipated the longer I go on in this book. And I think partly that's because the romance hasn't happened yet, and I'm anxiously awaiting the romance. So we'll see kind of how I feel as things start to heat up and things start to happen. It's very much not talking about the holiday season at all. Like, we're not there yet. They just keep saying, oh, winter is really hard here on the Bay. I grew up in Buffalo, New York. Winter's not really hard for me. I mean, it's mentally hard. I don't particularly like winter, but I know how it feels like to live in a harder winter. And so I don't have a lot of sympathy for them. Maybe that's just because the winter that I grew up with was probably a lot harder than the winter they're experiencing, but we haven't really seen any details of that. Like I said, it's been kind of a slow start to the book. So I'm anxious to find out more about maybe how this winter is going to be hard. I'm anxious to get to know the other characters a little bit better so they're more distinct. I'm anxious for this romance to pick up because nothing has happened yet. I'm anxious for her second chance to see how that goes. And there's literally a man on the cover. Like, I need him to show up. But this has been slow going. I also only have like 5 or 6 days left on this hold from the library. I guess worst case scenario is if my hold runs out and I can't renew it, I have a physical book I can read through and hopefully get through it in a reasonable amount of time anyway. I'm complaining a lot, but I am liking Jenny Bayliss in general. I just wonder if some of her other protagonists might resonate with me a little bit more, but I'm only 30% of the way in, so we'll see what happens. I have a book box coming from Yarnaceous Fibers towards the end of December that is Jenny Bayliss's A December to Remember. So that would be a really good book to read this holiday season and see if I do in fact really like her work, even if this one is not the perfect holiday romance for me. To be determined. We have lots of book left, so let's keep going and find.
Simon & Schuster Audio presents In a Holidaze by Christina Lauren. Read by Patty Murin.
All right, so I've got dinner cooking and I'm getting ready to do a few dishes while I'm waiting for dinner. And I am currently 10% of the way into In a Holidaze by Christina Lauren. And this is a really fast book, like less than 8 hours on audio, meaning it'll be less than 4 hours for me since I listen at 2 times speed. So I will finish this really fast, which means I need to pick up the pace with my ebook. I am really enjoying this book. I've read a couple Christina Lauren books, and I like that there's a little bit of a ridiculousness, not over the top, but like there's always a little bit of something that's like just beyond reality. From reading the back cover, it seems like this will be like a Groundhog Day type of like reliving the same experience over again. And I'm not sure if it'll be like repeated or if she just gets one extra chance at the cabin that her family stays at. But I'm really liking this book and had a really quick intro that's just like got me pulled in. I'm so interested to keep reading. What I really love is that this is set in Utah, which is so fun. I live in Utah if you are new here, and it sounds like all of the adults that go to this cabin every Christmas met in school at University of Utah, and they now meet at this cabin up in the mountains of Utah for their Christmas, December 20th to like December 26th or 7th every single year. So even with divorces and interesting blended family whatnots, all of the primary adults and all of their kids have been going to this cabin for like 30 years or something. But we have found out that the cabin will be sold. It's their last Christmas, but they find out right at the end of their trip, and so kind of sours everything because they don't know what they're going to do next year. There's a lot of nostalgia for this trip and that location, so not sure how that will pan out for the future for these couple families that do this every year. And our female main character has drunkenly made out with a family friend when she actually is in love with the family friend's brother. So things are a little bit messy, and she's just like, she's so embarrassed. And she's dreading what'll happen next year with this trip, not only because of embarrassment, but just because everything will be different. She wants to know what her next steps are since she's kind of in a low. And then she gets in an accident. And I think this is kind of the trigger that'll reset her experience. I'm really excited to keep reading, and I'll keep you updated.
I am absolutely loving In a Holidaze by Christina Lauren. It is kind of like a Groundhog Day. She's repeating the same vacation over and over. She's done it a few times. She's a little bit over it, and she is like trying different things. At first, she thought she needed to like save everyone's vacation and make it, you know, a better experience for everyone. And then she thought maybe she needed to save the cabin so that it wouldn't get sold at the end of this week. And she keeps getting like reset when she's trying these other paths. But now in this timeline, she is really getting close to Andrew, who is her like lifelong crush basically. It is so sweet. Like my heart, I'm just like, I'm kicking my feet, I'm giggling, like I'm melting inside. It is, oh my gosh, so adorable seeing them interact and him realizing that maybe she and Theo, the player brother, are not necessarily going to be together, which is what Andrew thought this whole time. Oh, I love it. I know that some conflict will probably turn up, but I love seeing this female main character stretch and grow and not be so much of a people pleaser and like a peacemaker, but she's saying the things she really feels, and she is doing the things she's always wanted. And I love seeing that growth for her. She's just trying it out because who cares? This day will probably get restarted anyway kind of idea. I'm just loving it. I do not want to put this book down. I'm 50% of the way in, and I just don't want to do anything else. I just want to read this book, which is a great sign. We are on track for my favorite read of the video, I think. Oh my gosh, they're under the mistletoe. I was just listening while I was eating my lunch. I was just, doing some random stuff on my phone while I was listening. And I just love when romances are like friends to lovers. Just that sweet, sweet romance. I love how these two are like laughing and giggling while they're having some intimate time. And I just love it. They're not taking it too seriously. They're enjoying each other's company. I just love it. I just love it. All right, I'm getting ready for a hooker walk this morning. My daughter's at daycare. Alfred's coming to snuggle. And it's not raining. It literally rained all day yesterday and all night. So everything's a little wet, but I should still be able to go on my walk. And it just feels really nice outside when I went out earlier. So I am excited to get a little bit of walking, a little bit of movement in. I have a different audiobook I was thinking about listening to, but for this video, I am falling behind on the season for Second Chances just because I read ebooks and physical books a lot slower, and I'm running out of time. I only have 2 days left of my hold, and I'm only 40% of the way into the book. So that wouldn't normally be too much of an issue, except for the fact that I have to place it on hold because apparently other people are waiting. So I gotta get this book finished. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna listen to the audiobook. I was able to get the audiobook from my library, and so I just scooted forward to the chapter I'm on, and I'll be able to listen 2 times speed, get really far in just a little bit of a walk, and feel a little bit more caught up. I can definitely read more tonight. I'll be staying up for switching my schedule to night shift. So I'm hoping that doing that
will give me the extra push to like get this done in time without feeling too stressed about it. I am in general liking the story, but it's not a favorite of mine. I think again, because I'm not super connecting with the characters. I also haven't seen any romance. I love a slow burn, but I need it to actually have the romance earlier on in the story. So I think this is just not quite the perfect fit of a holiday romance for me. And maybe I just came into it with a little bit of skewed expectations, but that's okay. I'm still enjoying it and I'm just running out of time. So that's the plan. But I did finish In a Holidaze yesterday. I had so much fun reading this. It was a nice, fun, quick read. So very sweet. I am still thinking about my rating. I will definitely share all my final ratings at the very end of this, but it's in the 4 to 5 star category. Like, I would highly recommend this. There was a couple things that maybe weren't perfect in the story, and so that's why I'm like, is it a 5 star? Like, do I not care about those things that could be different, or do I actually wish that it could be different? Still trying to figure that out, but I loved May and Andrew's story, and it really resonated with me. I felt like that could have been me, but I feel like this would have been my perfect romance if I was in college to read this story. Oh my goodness, I loved this. And I love that Christina Lauren just has like slightly ridiculous, but not super ridiculous story. So it's like almost still believable. And I think that the magical realism of this book lends itself to that style. I need to read more Christina Lauren, I think is what I'm learning. I read this and then I read The Paradise Problem earlier this year, and I also really loved it. I think I rated it a 4.5 star. So I just need to read more of their work. So that means I have a book that everyone has written is now off my TBR. So I only have this last book to go. So I'm trying to power through so that we can get to the end of this and I can share my final thoughts on these books and my final ratings. So let's go on our little walk.
She had spent her entire adult life in a career that demanded her evenings, and now she had them back.
There are some adult topics in this book I will not mention for fear of demonetization. We have met John Granger, and he has interrupted the adult topics they were talking about.
My walk is done. I've got nice rosy cheeks because it's the perfect fall temperature outside. We need snow for it to be winter, in my opinion, but I went a little over 2 miles. I listened to this book the whole time, and I am now on chapter 46. So I read 9 chapters, and I'm at 52% of the way in. So I've read 12% of the book in just one morning walk. So that feels really good that I am making good progress. I'm going to be doing some other things. I've got some errands to run today, but hopefully I can get a chance to sit down with my Kindle and read a little bit more now that John has been introduced. I don't know how I feel about him. He had a really rude and mean meet cute, and he had a couple circumstances where they really butted heads. I just don't know how I feel about him. He seems like a very different person than like his first couple impressions. It feels like a little bit of a stretch character-wise, why he is so grumpy. But maybe we'll learn more about him as the story goes on. Okay, I'm getting ready to take my nap for night shift. I have this book on my Kindle for only like 24 more hours, so I have to make some good progress. I took my melatonin. I'm winding down. I'll read a few chapters until I'm sleepy, and then I'll take my nap. And I'll bring up my Kindle to work with me, see how much I can get done. I am also mentally prepared to listen to it on my drive to and or from work because I am ready to finish this book.
All right, so I have switched to audio for this book because my Kindle loan runs out in like 3 hours, and I will definitely not finish if I just read physically. So we're switching it up. I'm going to listen on my drive home. I did get a couple chapters done on my night shift, but things went south, so I did not get nearly as much done as I had thought or hoped during my shift. I will definitely keep reading. We'll see how far I get on the audiobook right now on my drive back to my in-laws is where I'm staying right now. I'm spending the long weekend with them. And then after that, I will read a chapter or 2 right before I sleep for the day because I'm back again tonight. And I may have to switch to the physical book, or I may have to finish this on audio. I do read way faster on audio, so we'll see. But oh my goodness, we are like 70% of the way into this book. John and Annie, they almost did the thing. Like things are getting a little spicy unexpectedly. Kind of one thing led to another, but was cut short. I still don't know how I feel about the progression of especially John's characterization, but I like where both of these characters are at right now in the story. Let's go on our drive and see how far we can get on this audiobook.
And you mopped him, said Alex. That's a bit weird, isn't it? Angry mopping a person? Okay, so we all heard of the one bed trope, but have you heard of one sofa? I was able to finish A Season for Second Chances on my Kindle just in time. Now, technically, my loan expired at like noon, but I woke up early after napping before my night shift and I couldn't get back to sleep, so I figured I would read some more. And it left the loan on my Kindle long enough that I was able to finish like the last hour of reading on my Kindle in bed, trying to fall asleep again for my subsequent night shift. And so I finished the book and wow, it was quite a chaotic ending. Definitely something I did not expect, but it kept me on the edge of my seat. So I'm excited to talk about that, but right now I need to go to sleep so that I can switch over to working days again and spending some time with my family today. In a day or two, when things have calmed down, I will close out this video and talk about all of my final ratings for all of these books.
All right, you may notice the video looks different. I got a new phone. I had an iPhone XS, so it was long overdue to get a new phone, and it was pooping out. So we have our new phone. Perfect timing to finish out this video. I wanted to talk about all the books that I read in this holiday TBR, as well as my ratings for them. Trying not to give too many spoilers, but there may be mild spoilers, as there has been probably throughout this video. But definitely let me know down below if you've read any of these books and what you would rate them if your feelings on these books differ from my feelings on these books. The first book that I finished for this video is Spectacular by Stephanie Garber. This is part of the Caraval series. This is like book 3.5. It's a novella and it's just like a little holiday special at the end of the events of the Caraval series. There really isn't any connection to the Once Upon a Broken Heart series if you have continued reading in this world. This is exclusively part of Caraval. And in this book, they're preparing for a great holiday, and Tella doesn't have a gift for Legend. She's trying to figure out what to get him. She wants it to be something extra special, and she's just kind of stumped. And she also feels uncertain about her relationship with Legend, so she goes on a search to try to figure out what to get him. In this little novella, there are some really cute illustrations. I mean, beautiful end papers, right? But also, let's find some illustrations. Look, there's some beautiful illustrations throughout. So reading this as a physical copy is really fun to see all these pictures and also some like multimedia type of content. But also, I did the audiobook for this while I had the physical book open in front of me, so I was able to enjoy the pictures and things. The audiobook has sound effects and music and all sorts of things that just add to the holiday vibes, which I really, really liked. And I feel like Stephanie Garber did a really good job at using a lot of magic in this story. That's like my favorite part about Stephanie Garber's books is the slightly sinister magic that you see in them. I also really like the holiday vibes. It definitely gave me all of the feels that I was looking for in holiday fantasy. I do feel like the ending of this book happened a little quickly, and I kind of felt a little icky about Tella's predicament and how she was responding to the predicament she found herself in. And if you read this book, you would kind of know what I'm talking about. Not my favorite, but I really love the magic. I really love these characters. I loved the holiday vibes for this story. I love the illustrations. This is a beautiful novella that I am so excited to have on my shelf. I rated this a 4.25 star because in general, I did like the arc of the story, but a couple things I didn't like as much, and I would have loved a little bit more meat at the very end of the story to kind of land the plot into. It just kind of wrapped up too quickly and too easily, and a little unsatisfying in that sense. 4.25 stars. And that book fulfilled the requirement of continue a series you've already started. The next book that I finished was The Holiday Cottage by Sarah Morgan. And in this book, Imogen is kind of an overachieving workhorse type of a character. She doesn't really connect with the people at her workplace. She doesn't really celebrate the holidays or Christmas, and she doesn't really feel like sharing her imperfect background with those around her. She has a difficult relationship with her mother, and she grew up with a lot of strife in her home, and so she's not very open with those around her. She does connect with Dorothy, who is her favorite client. Imogen works with like events planning or like campaigning for different businesses. So some kind of publicity or event planning or something in that realm. So Dorothy is her favorite client. Dorothy ends up inviting Imogen to come stay at Dorothy's cottage that Dorothy will not be at. It's like her extra little home, or like her starter home that she still has and she goes to occasionally, but she doesn't really spend a lot of time at, wanting Imogen to feel loved. And you come to find out some secrets about Imogen's family, about Dorothy's past, about Sarah, who is Dorothy's daughter, and you just learn a lot more about how these lives are intertwined, but in a heartwarming and reconciliatory way. Like, you get to really love these characters and feel like things are turning out the way they should be, even if they've all three crossed some struggles to get where they are at this point in the book. So the first half of the story is very mysterious and you're not really sure what's going on, and then you get some truths dropped, and then the second half of the story you see these characters come together and grow in how they care for one another. You see Imogen get to experience some found family and holiday magic in the second half of the story, and even some love. I found these characters really complex and interesting, which I really enjoyed, though this had kind of a slower start to the book because we spent so much time getting to know these characters and getting inklings of their darker pasts. Not like thrillery where there's some really horrid people, but in the sense that they all have some secrets or some trials that they have gone through and shaped them into the person they are, flaws and all. It did kind of feel like this book was two separate stories, with the first half being a little bit more slow and mysterious and getting to know these complex characters, and the second half being very wholesome and like family focused and experiencing the holidays and making new traditions and feeling love in the holiday season. I loved both versions of the book, but I didn't necessarily feel like they meshed together well. I love both halves of the book, just in their own separate ways. I rated this a 4-star because I did really enjoy this. I would love to read more from Sarah Morgan and explore more complex characters that she writes. I did feel like I got some of the holiday vibes in this because of how Imogen was integrated into this family and got to experience some holiday traditions like going Christmas tree shopping and going to like a Christmas market and things like that. Though as far as like small town vibes, not as strong in this book as you might expect. And The Holiday Cottage was a book about friendship, as you see Dorothy and Imogen come closer to one another. And you learn some stuff too. The next book that I finished was In Holidaze by Christina Lauren. And this one, pick a book that everyone has read. This came out a few years ago, and so I definitely feel like everyone has read this already. And Christina Lauren is a popular author too. I think this might have been my favorite read of this entire video. I rated this a 4.5 star. In this story, May has made some unfortunate choices. Like, I won't say poor choices, but she kissed her lifelong crush's brother when she was drunk, and she found out that the cabin that her family and their friends have met at for every Christmas since before she was born is going to be sold. So they're going to miss out on this huge holiday tradition and meeting with this big found family that they really love. And so between these couple things, everything's just going wrong. She feels really unsatisfied and unhappy. She also doesn't like her job. And as she's leaving this vacation, she's thinking, I just want the universe to show me like what will make me happy, because I feel like I'm losing so much of what does make me happy, and there's a lot of ways that I feel like I can never be happy. She gets in a car accident with her family, and she wakes up on the plane heading to this vacation she has already lived. So it is a Groundhog Day type of scenario where she's reliving this vacation and making different choices. She thankfully doesn't relive it too many times, just a couple times. You see her grow as a character as she is fighting for what she wants and saying screw it about everything else. She's previously been a people pleaser, just a peacemaker, trying not to rock the boat, and she's like, no, I'm gonna be different this time because the way I've lived my life got me into this Groundhog Day scenario, so I'm gonna do something different. And she sticks up for herself, she shares what she thinks, she just brings a little bit more feisty to her character, and I love seeing that character growth and as she works for what she wants and tells people what she really thinks. For the most part, she is being more kind because she's not being so nice, if that makes sense. And I love seeing this character growth. And you also see a friend to lovers romance plot, and it was just so sweet. I live in Utah right now, and so this book being set in Park City in like a cabin type of scenario was just like so cozy and homey and made me feel like this was a nostalgic read, even though I haven't read this before. I feel like myself, when I was in college or when I was 25 or 26, however her age was, this would have been perfect for me. I really identified with this character. I loved the humor. It was very millennial coded, but not in a way that felt cringy like some millennial books are. It just felt really relatable to me as far as like pop culture references, not overly done, not overly obscure. I thoroughly enjoyed this story. It was very heartwarming. I love a friends to lovers subplot, though I do feel like the conflict at the end felt a little bit blown out of proportion. Like, I understood the conflict being there. It was a very real conflict, but the way that the characters reacted to the conflict was a little bit more than it should have been. Like, it shouldn't have been as big of a deal as it was, personally. But when you're in your early 20s and your lifelong crush, things get messier, even if the actual issue at hand is not that big of a deal. I rated this a 4.5 star. I love this. I would definitely read this again. This made me so happy, and it was a really quick audiobook too. It was only like 8 hours to listen to. The very last book that I finished was A Season for Second Chances by Jenny Bayliss. And this is one of the queens of Christmas or holiday romances. She has tons and tons of books out, and this was my first foray into reading her work. I definitely see myself reading from her again, though this story in particular didn't necessarily resonate with me like I had hoped. I think part of that was because the main character is in her like mid to late 40s. She has twin sons who are grown-ups. She owns a restaurant with her sleazy husband, and he cheats on her. She finally leaves the relationship that has been tenuous at best, and she sets off to find herself. I love that. I love that for her. Definitely not relatable to me, but I could totally understand her. I could see her character. I really love getting to know her. The thing that kind of deviated for me was, I feel like her sense of humor, the way she talked, even the way she texted people was just kind of cringy for me. I don't know. I don't know if Jenny Bayliss is an older writer or if she was trying to write an older character. No, she's not old at all. It felt cringy and not relatable to me, the way that she was like interacting with other characters, her way of speaking. And I know partly that may be a cultural thing since this took place in the UK or Scotland, maybe like a bay in Scotland, Willow Bay, if I remember correctly. Didn't quite like jive with me. I also felt like the romance took forever to even show up. Not even a slow burn. I love a slow burn. But the meet cute between these two characters, between Annie and John, didn't happen until like more than 50% of the way into the book. It was just kind of a slower read. We spent a lot of time at the beginning of the story getting to know Annie, and it felt a little bit unnecessary. Like, I didn't get anything more from those added pages about Annie. And she met all sorts of people in this little small town, and only about half of them were even pertinent to the story. And so it felt like all these extra names, and I couldn't remember for the pertinent people where they came from in the first place. I read this on ebook, and so again, it was a little bit slower of a read for me because I get through audiobooks a lot faster, and so maybe that contributed. But I read some other reviews, and other people said that it did feel slow. It did feel like there was too many characters that didn't really matter, and I just feel like I wish the beginning of this book, the first half, was a lot faster. I also felt like the conclusion of this story, the like big climax moment, was a little bit contrived. I didn't really see the conflict coming, the disaster that had happened. I don't know. And this isn't like a relationship disaster, but like a disaster for the community kind of thing. So that was nice. It wasn't like a third act breakup type of a conflict, but it did feel a little bit like I knew exactly what the author was doing the whole book. They kept putting more weight into certain characters than I felt like those characters deserved for what was happening in the story, just to create this big climax of this big disaster. Though it was very gripping, I could not put the book down when I got to that part of the book. It just felt a little bit like they only did it for the plot kind of thing. I rated this a 3.5 star. I would definitely read from her again, though hopefully like a character and a romance that I jive with more. It just did not have enough romance in here because it started late, and I did not like John at all. He seemed like a really awful character for the first little bit that we met him. And so that version compared to the version we actually got to know was just so dissonant that I had a hard time believing it was the same character. And I love some character growth, and I love when a character comes off one way but they're actually kind of different, but it didn't quite make sense to me in my little brain. Not a perfect read. There were definitely parts I enjoyed, but I rated this a 3.5 star. We'll see if I enjoy something else by Jenny Bayliss, or if this was indicative of her other work. I'm not quite sure. I did feel like this wasn't quite as holiday Christmassy themed as I had hoped, because it kind of takes place more in like the October, November time period, which is unfortunate because it looks like there's snow. So yeah, maybe I just kind of missed out. I wish that this was more winter seasonal coded than autumn seasonal coded. And that book has been on my TBR the longest when it comes to holiday books. All right, so there you have it. All 4 books that I read for this vlog and some of my thoughts about them. I really had a lot of fun reading all of these books and getting a chance to really dive into some like holiday reads and get me in the holiday spirit. And I hope that reading this vlog helped you get in the holiday spirit too. Let me know what holiday you are celebrating this time of year, and if you have read any of these books, what you thought of them. I would love to especially hear if you have different opinions about some of these books, so we can have a good discussion in the comments below. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you again in another Vlogmas episode. Until then, happy reading. Bye!